Mic, camera, action.
Let's go. Let's go.
There's four of you.
You can count. I'm impressed. Now drive.
Rule one, never change the deal. The deal was transportation for three men with a combined weight of 254 kilos.
Yeah? Well, this is a new deal.
An extra 80 kilos means we'll not make your destination on the gas I have allotted.
So we'll stop and get more gas.
Every stop we make exposes us. Every exposure increases the risk of getting caught. An extra 80 kilos means the Coney shock absorbers I installed for this job will not give us the ability to outmaneuver any police that might be chasing us. Which means, if there is a chase, we lose our advantage, which also increases the possibility of getting caught. I don't want to get caught. You don't want to get caught.
Just drive the car, man, or you're gonna catch a bullet to the brains.
And who's going to drive?
Shoot this asshole! I drive!
Not without the ignition code, you won't. Three men, 254 kilos. That was the deal.
Welcome back to the Filmography, the show dedicated to watching every credited film from an actor's complete back catalogue, from past debut through to present day in chronological order. Each episode, I'm joined by an esteemed guest to watch and discuss the next entry from the Focus Filmography and to consider how it ranks amidst their career and whether we can trace any typecasting trends or topic traits or theatrical tics. For episode 7, I'm joined by champion of the cult, an angry Andy agitator Dan Bors to discuss the 7th overall, but first proper appearance of the Stath in the slick indie actioner, The Transporter. We watch, you listen, and hopefully watch along too. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show to discuss this perfect action career launcher for the Stath.
Yes, but you broke rule number 2. No names.
No names.
No names.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you for having me back. Am I the first returning guest?
You're my first returning guest, yeah.
Of course, and I do truly appreciate that. And I'm glad I kind of snuck in. I know a lot of people have picked their favorites in this, when you asked. And I'm glad I snuck in and got this one because I've forgotten how much I liked it. I do think it's a bit of an underrated action movie and franchise. But yeah, it was so much fun to return to this and see the Stath in one of his bests, honestly.
I agree. I watched it, a few nights ago now. I probably could have stuck it on again straight the next day. It's so much fun. And in terms of this progression we're seeing from him as an actor, this is, and we'll get into it a lot more detail. See, this is the one. This is the true Stath appearing on our screen for the first time.
And that's what's really cool is going back and thinking about when we recorded our Lock Stock one and seeing how sheepish and nervous and in the background he was. This is he's putting a stamp on this is his thing. This is what I do, and this is what I do best. He did most of the martial arts, most of the stunts. He did most of the driving. He learned how to hotwire for one scene, just for one scene. It's his vehicle. He's like, this is an absolute showcase for the Stath. This is your audition. This is audition tape. It's like, put me in more things. And obviously, this was written for him as well. Straight off the back of the one, like your previous podcast with Blake, straight off his appearance in that, and he still has that American affectation, which I forgot about. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure he's just Cockney in this. And then I heard it and I went, oh no, he is a little bit American now.
I mean, he is still just Cockney this, you're right, just with a very awful attempt at an American.
Yeah, which is it's not his skill, and he'll learn, he'll move away from it, and then that's a good thing. And and that's part of this Statholution thing. We're going to see how he moves and advances his career. But I think this is a hell of a he's on the pedestal now. There's a pedestal for him, and he's only just going to climb to the very top, the tippy top of this action genre.
We keep talking about, obviously seeing the Stath evolution and seeing like these career steps. It's amazing how by film 7 he's at this point already, but also how many times we've spoken about like people creating roles for him. Like Guy Ritchie did it. John Carpenter didn't create the role for him, but he was his first choice for that, and that was a big chance to take. I know he didn't get the role in the end of Desolation. It went to Ice Cube, didn't it? But again, here, like Luc Besson I know he's only the producer here, but he's a proven talent by this point in his career, and he's a proven talent as a producer as well. Producing other people's work. So for him to be approaching Jason Statham and saying like, "I've got a role for you, very specific. We know you've got a skill set you've not managed to showcase yet." It's quite amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm whenever I hear the word Luc Besson, I'm in.
Yeah, me
100%. I am in. Like, you name it. Like, he's had some even if he's just a producer or a writer, I'm still on board. And I've always loved his kind of European action adventure stuff. I really always get into it, behind it. Like, think about Taken, Leon, Colombiana, you name it. There's such good stuff, and I'm glad that he went, right, we've got something for you. And you've got Louis Leterrier as well, who was, now in the credits it says he's the artistic director, but really he's kind of a co-director in this, from what I've read.
It reminds me of like what they used to do with the old Bond movies when Vic Armstrong used to be part of the team there. It would be, you'd have the name director who would do all the talking scenes, and Vic Armstrong would do all the second unit, but really there you meant second unit was all the action scenes. And it feels like this is the same here. Louis Leterrier is doing all the kind of talky staging scenes, whilst Corey Yen takes charge of anything that's to do with action.
Yeah, you can, and I think you can tell, but I think, like, I like the work of Louis Leterrier. I'm a big fan of the Incredible Hulk film. I can't remember what else he's done off the top of my head, but
not a lot. He's become a key figure behind the MCU producing as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
He comes up in a lot of credits for that too.
Yeah, I think especially early on as well. But I like his energy. I like his style. I think he's a really passionate guy as well. I don't know Corey Yuen so much, or his work, but when I saw Louis Leterrier pop up, I went, of course he's involved in this. Yeah, and I mean, just those names alone, Louis Leterrier and Luc Besson and Jason Statham. It's it's a absolute powerhouse coming into this, and even the shots and the direction and the cinematography is actually quite interesting for like a very basic bare bones action film. Like, some really interesting ways that they move the camera and frame it and shoot the scenes as well. Especially like, I love a good film that has like a wheelman film or a driver film, like Drive or Baby Driver or The Driver, things like that. And I always like that they have these set rules and they end up breaking them and gets them into loads of trouble and things get complicated, which is the thing that Frank is actively avoiding throughout this. And I get that. I can understand that. It's like, just keeping it simple and straightforward and no risks and stuff. But some of these action sequences are fucking fantastic. I know everyone talks about the Daredevil hallway fight scenes, but I'm always a fan as well of like a cramped, hallway or area, or something to make the actor or stunt performer, martial artist struggle. And there's quite a few of these. There's the scene in the bus. There's a scene in the small hallway with the two axes.
The shipping container.
Yes, yeah, that as well. Some absolute amazing stunt work and stuff. And the Stath is right there. Like, it's not. There's not many people that look like the Stath. You can't really get many stunt doubles or doubles for him. And he's there every single shot, every single thing. He's hanging off that truck for real and stuff like that. He is in it, and he's like, what I love about it as well is he's giving it his all. He's like, right, this is it. This is my chance. This is my opportunity. And I'll grab it with both hands and I'm going to become what I want to become. This is it. This is my trajectory and I'm going to ascend. And that's exactly what he does in this film, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. So in line with that sense of, Louis Leterrier was handpicked by Besson to be the director. So it makes sense that he obviously recognised his skill set because he'd been working for him in other capacities. And, Besson's bringing in Corey Yim because of his Hong Kong action expertise. And as you said, we'll get into some of the scenes and we'll break them down because there's some fantastic ones. You sort of outlined the key ones I was thinking of as well. And then also, the Stace handpicked, and this is for him. And you're right, like I watch some behind the scenes stuff and it's like pretty much every action scene that wasn't physically going to cause him harm, and some that would, he did do. So he got his hair singed, what little of it there is. As you said, he was harnessed underneath the truck in the Raiders homage when he goes underneath the truck in the final scene. All the fight scenes he's in. And to think that this is just not a skill set we've seen from him before is really awesome. And I think you hit the nail on the head. This is my moment. I've got to grasp it. And the way I'm going to grasp it is by being the guy that's in there doing it. The only one I saw in any of the behind the scenes stuff that he didn't do was towards the start when his car explodes and he flies backwards into the bonnet of the parked car. That was a stuntman. But I think all the fighting scenes, and I think, some actors like to big this up and it's not so true. But as you said, it's very hard to find somebody who looks enough like the Stath to get away with it. And we've all seen the movies where clearly it's a stunt double and looks nothing like him. We've all watched Buffy and Angel where clearly it's stunt doubles and look nothing like them. But also because of the way Corey shoots this, and particularly in that syrup oil slick scene, that's actually a one-up. There's no cuts in that at all. It's a camera spinning around Jason Statham in the middle, constantly doing these high spinning kicks and taking people out. It has to be him. I mean, we're not at the point where technology is doing face mapping. So I'm sort of backing you up by repeating it and adding a little bit more. But I agree with everything you said. This is the moment, I think, where everybody suddenly went, holy shit, who is this guy? And what is he going to do next?
But and again, I think because in a way it's kind of forgotten because it's in quite, like you said, it's only his 7th film. It's quite far back in his catalogue, in the filmography, that unfortunately I think it does get kind of not talked about as much as it probably should be. And we have action films and we have martial arts films and, they're all different degrees of good. But I think this is like a solid actioner. It's a very basic plot, very bare bones plot. You don't need much. And again, a lot of the scenes, there's no dialogue. There's just sheer action, and there's comedy, there's timing, there's character, there's everything you want. There's there's a sense of humor to it. There's a wry sense of humor. And I think it's really solid. It is, it's a solid for me. I don't know. We'll rate it at the end. I'm sure we're going to do that. But it's good. It's quality. And like you said, it just adds so much to his, people haven't seen this in his repertoire. This sort of stuff. He knew kickboxing. He was a kickboxer. He's familiar with that. But he did still went out and, did some more martial arts training to kind of get that kind of look. And his legs are flying everywhere in this. It's shoom, 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 up in people's faces and stuff. And just fantastic. Just all of it, all the way through. And I was I forgot how good it was. I was I was quite, when you said, I was oh yeah, transporter films I quite enjoyed. And then when I came back, I went, fuck yeah, I enjoyed this. I fucking really enjoyed this. This is brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, this has real nostalgic memories for me too. This one, even more so when you and I discussed the second one again, when you come back for that, because you're coming back for all the transporters. That one was on seriously hard rotation when me and Rhea were living together in our mid-20s. That sounds about right. Yeah, when I'm in my mid-20s, and I should probably in a early to mids, because that second one is this film, but with that added, I suppose, Stath is just as you said here, he's discovering who he's going to be.
Yeah, it's a high octane. It's got a more complicated plot. It's more fucking mental. It's just the first film, but more and America.
this is establishing the world, isn't it? Whereas the second
Yeah.
film is like we're in from the start, and it goes to some really stupid places, but I'm here for all of it.
Yeah. Very complicated and outrageous plots and plan. It's almost like a Bond film in a way.
Well, yeah, we're going to mention that later with this one as well. But I think what these films do is they hang off like that thread, like you said. You name check quite a few things, like the driver that came before this, but then obviously Drive and Baby Driver that comes after it. That wheelman is the kernel of this. Whereas Transporter 2 is a bit different. It's the like the one-man mission to rescue. It's the man on fire. It's that sense of movie, isn't it? Where it plays with a slightly different genre. I think in terms of where this starts, though, we'll get a little bit into the plot and how it starts. I think immediately from the start of this movie whether you're going to like it or not. Like the tone is established. So you have Jason Statham like turning up to the first robbery, like the first mission where he's the wheelman to get them away, and we have the four, well, it's supposed to be three, but we have the four guys getting into the car, and they have the debate about one's going to have to get out. I'm not going to be able to do this, so I'm just going to sit here, and the police are all around the car, and it's wacky and it's silly, and then the car chase is very kind of hyper realistic, I suppose is the way I'd call it. And for me, it's like, well, 5 minutes, 10 minutes into this movie, all right, I know what I'm getting and I'm here for it. But I can understand that probably some people immediately may have checked out.
Yeah, I think because he's so cool, like obviously the comedy comes because they're so like, oh my God, we're gonna die, and you know, we're robbing the bank, and they're all like high energy, and he's just like, yep, one of you got to get out. He's just deadpan. You know, deadpan, stone cold. He's like, this was the deal. You changed the deal, so I'm not going anywhere. So do whatever you want. If you kill me, because he's got a code to start the ignition for the car. So he's like, you can't drive this without the code. So kill me if you want, whatever. But yeah, I can see why. I think there is a bit of goofy humor here and there, and there's a bit of silly humor, but I think for the most part it works. The humor when it does come. I don't think there's nothing where it's like, there was never a moment where I was like, that joke didn't land, or that joke didn't work, or that shrug, or that moment, or that, you know, there's never where I was like, oh, this is uncomfortable, it's bad, or it's cheesy. You know, there is some stuff in it where I'm like, okay, maybe a bit much, but I also know the type of film this is. But yeah, I think it kind of tells you what it's going to be from the get-go. It says, right, do you like action? Do you like driving? And that sequence alone, I think, is one of the best bits of, like, I know everyone talks about car chases in movies and what's the best car chase ever. But I think that's again, even if it's not one of the best, it's definitely in the top 50 at least, I'd say, or top 100 or whatever you want to call it. It's in there. It's a contender for a good car chase. And it's great. It's got loads of twists and turns, a lot of things going on. You got the guy throwing up, and you know, there's all these little bits, you know, the one-liners and everything. But yeah, just again, really solid bit of directing, and stunt driving as well is just incredible. Good stuff.
I think the comedy works because it's knowing, isn't it? It kind of it accepts what it is, and it knows it's wacky. And I think that, you know, I'm just going to repeat myself. It's establishing its tone. It's saying like, this is what we are, and we're just going to have fun with it. And I think most of that comes from the score, which I've seen a few people online, you know, doing some research into reviewing and stuff, being quite critical. But I think the score and the soundtrack is used so perfectly to set like either the right tone or the wrong tone. But I think completely deliberately. I think it knows what it's doing all the time.
I think you're right, because I do remember like, what is going on? Like it's so varied. Like it just takes some weird and wacky turns. But again, so does the film. Like we're in this very like peaceful, tranquil. I think it's Nice. They're in Nice, south of France, I want to say. And you know, and they've got the French cops there and stuff. And yeah, it is a very tranquil. But then all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, I need to go pee, and all this other silly stuff. And I do think like comedy's tricky as well, like internationally, because like even comedy within the UK, like a joke that'll land in the Northwest isn't going to necessarily land in the Southeast. You know, I remember I had some Polish friends come and see me do some comedy sketch show stuff when I was still acting, and they came and they were very supportive, and they enjoyed it, but they didn't particularly find it funny. But and that's why I kind of realized, I was like, yeah, like, you know, it's humor's such a like subjective thing. Like, no matter where you are and what your background is, you know, some stuff people just don't enjoy. Like I enjoy all forms of comedy, but there is that kind of like almost Jackie Chan style like humor in it as well. And I don't think that's a bad comparison, because there is a lot of Jackie Chanisms, I would say, in this, especially with the Grease fight. I'm sure we'll get into is a very Jackie Chan.
Yeah,
inspired.
the use of space and the objects in the space around him is definitely
Absolutely, in those like cramped, you know, the cramped places where he's trying to fight, and it's, you know, it's just done a bit more seriously than, oh my god, I don't want to hurt you, but I'm actually murdering you now. You know, that kind of like Jackie Chan reluctant, like, you know, which is amazing. Which I love. You know, I love Jackie Chan and all that and what he does, and that's, you know, so original at the time. And yeah, and there is an edge of that. It's like a serious Jackie Chan kind of idea, mixing that Eastern and Western driver aesthetic and that driver kind of framework with that kind of more Eastern martial arts, yet with a sprinkling of kind of European flavor as well, which is, I think, is it's like a souffle. It's like a lovely souffle. All these parts coming together and rising to the top and making it excellent. It doesn't for one moment pop and, you know, let all the air out. It's good. It's a good kind of, and I also like, I would forget things and then I would sort of half remember them. I was like, does he like? I think I said this before, like in a podcast where it's like, oh, where's that cool? I think it was on Them on Film with Rhea, and I was saying, oh, there's this really cool thing I remembered. It always kind of lives rent free in my head, and then I'm like, where is that from? And then watching the Transporter again, I was like, I think he does this now, and it's like, yep, this happens. This goes, yeah, I remember these bits. You know, it just kind of comes back to you in kind of slow increments, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, this is great. But yeah, such a fun film, but. Like I said, the plot is really basic. It's really simple. Again, you've got the driver, sticks to the rules usually, and he's given a job.
The one time he doesn't, of course.
Exactly. This one time, and you know, he always has the weight. He follows his rules, which is one. The deal is the deal. Whatever deal is made has to stick, or it's off. The whole thing. Rule number 2 is no names. He doesn't want to be involved. And then the third, what was the third one? I've forgotten now. Never open the bag. Never open the bag.
Yeah. Never look at what they missed. Yeah. So he's very much like a reluctant hero type. He doesn't want to be involved. He doesn't want any names. He doesn't want to be implicated. He doesn't want it to be used against him. And again, he doesn't want to use guns. He doesn't want to. Again, it's this driver kind of, you know, this archetype of the driver, the wheelman. And doesn't want to get involved in the violence. Doesn't want to go in the bank. He's just there to drive. That's all he does, and he does it very well. But when he doesn't drive and he does get involved, he can fuck everybody up. Yeah, as you find out really quickly.
It's like, oh, this is why he doesn't, because everybody dies. But I don't think there's a lot of murder necessarily. There are murders in it that he kills. But
I know what you mean. He tends to maim rather than murder. Yeah.
He doesn't tend to actively kill them unless he kind of, it's almost like the Spider-Man thing where he jumps out of the way of the villains and they kill themselves. There's a bit of that where it's like the other guys are accidentally killing the other people. But yeah, initially it's only towards the end when it ramps up and we know about the container and what's in the container and stuff. But yeah, it starts off and he's done the job. So it's kind of a bit like James Bond as well, because he has the first job, he has the prologue. This is what he does. This is the end of this adventure. On to the next one. This is this new job, you know, and he always checks the weight, and he changes his vehicle depending on what kind of job it is and what's going to be required. And I like that. And he's like, oh, well, the suspension won't work because there's too many of you. And again, they shoot the guy and throw him out, which is a great bit of dark humor. He's like, right, let's go. And we find out that in the bag, there is a young Chinese girl called Lai. I want to say Lai.
I think they call her Lai, which is obviously going to get called back on later on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a proper shit name. Proper shit like gag as well.
Yeah, yeah,
she's
yeah,
a
yeah.
woman. She's a woman, and we obviously she's called Lie. Can't trust her. But yeah, we find out that she is potentially being human trafficked, and that she's part of this kind of thing, and obviously very reluctantly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but did he pay? Does he pay for that first Orangina as he leaves?
It's on my list of things to do, and there's a great mention of it on a review I'm going to read later. No, he doesn't.
He does. He just grabs
bastard. He just walks out with it, doesn't he?
Because I was like, because he gets up, he goes, grabs it, and then I'm like, did he leave any change? Did he like throw some change down? And I was like, no, he just fucking robbed that poor French businessman. He's starving. His whole family's starving now because he's stolen Orangina. But yeah, we get that, and he slowly kind of softens, and very much like a Mandalorian Baby Yoda type thing, where he's the harsh, cold man. He's like, oh, I don't do soft stuff, and eventually he lets us speak. But even then, he's like, I can't get involved. I've got to keep my distance, and it's going to ruin my job. And and obviously, the more he gets involved with her, and she kind of finds it. There's a really shite moment where she's like just walking through the house and knocks this big box off, and it just happens to have all of his like army records and photos and everything about his life. And
with a real photo of the Stath as a young man holding a monkey.
Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, they've not even just like tried to work that in. It's just like
that's not like a horrible Photoshop job. That's a genuine Jason Statham like original from his past. He knows what was going on.
But I just thought that was a bit forced, that bit. I was like, you didn't need to, like, there's better ways.
He's human after all.
Yeah, but there's better ways of storytelling wise of getting that information without her just going knocking something over. Silly me. Boom. But yeah, I was like, I didn't particularly care for that bit. But yeah, she gets involved and she asks for his help, and she finds out that there's a container full of, he finds out there's a container full of people. And basically from there, they get in more and more danger, in more and more trouble. They've got a French police officer he's friends with, kind of, he knows that he's a illegal driver for these jobs, and he's, but there's a kind of playful kind of back and forth that they have. They're not friends, but they're not like enemies either, and they kind of respect each other. And again, I think that's kind of within the kind of driver wheelman kind of archetypes as well. There's always that guy who kind of knows what's going on, and then they have to escape, and obviously the transporter almost gets blown up. And you've got the guy from Blade 2 and Fast and Furious is in it as the villain.
Yeah, Matt Schultz. I like this guy I like him as a bad guy. He's good.
He's good. He's a good sleazy, sleazy villain. I think there's a line in Blade 2 I always remember that comes from him, and he's like,
he's Chupa. Is he Chupa or something in Blade 2? Isn't he?
Yeah. Chupa. He goes, what does he say in Blade 2? He goes, you're one hillbilly cunt hair away from kick shit to heaven. And I was like, that's quite a line.
That is.
That is quite
delivered with aplomb.
Anyway, yeah.
I mean, he's called Wall Street in this, which is another wicked character name.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's a good one. But yeah, he's proper sleazebag. Like, he's a sleazy. He kills his friend by his henchman by shoving a little napkin down his throat and stuff. Yeah, he's a proper sleazebag. But yeah, that's basically the plot, and that's kind of all you need, though. It's like,
arguably,
hero.
That's more than you need, really. Yeah, he's a guy who drives cars. He breaks his rule this one time. To be fair, for Shu Kui in 2002. I'd probably break my rules as well.
Yeah, fair enough.
I can see why he'd be drawn to her as a young woman. And then, chaos ensues, isn't it? And then we have this kind of twist 2/3 of the way through into the third act where it's turned into this human trafficking plot. But really, it's just a vehicle. It's just a way to get him into a new action scene and to give him a bit more motivation, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. And yeah, there is a bit of a weak twist where she's actually the daughter of the guy who's doing the human trafficking, which I was like, it
doesn't really add up to a lot, no.
No, it was just like, oh no, she's fighting her own father, or she's going to kill her own father, or I was kind of like, it's just more of an excuse to see her be abused, really, in this film, and I'm like, yeah. And there was a bit of cheesecake when they come out of the water, out of the snorkeling and diving stuff. And she's like, but again, it's kind of part and parcel of this.
It is. I think that's the one moment of objectification for her, is a shot where from behind, from like bottom level, wasn't there? To be fair, the Stath is equally objectified in this movie.
Fair point. Yeah, he's well. I mean, he's even greased up, isn't he? He's even greased up for the ladies. Ooh.
So, according to my new tally chart, thank you, Mike. Once again, I counted 3 times. 3 times we've got a topless Stath in this movie.
Nice.
So this is by far the sexiest Stath performance, I think, and he gets the snog and he gets a shag in this movie. So,
nice. He's doing well. He's doing well. It's working out, transporting.
Absolutely.
That job is absolutely paying off. What a fun film. Like, it's just, it's a blast. It
is. I think, as we said several times, it's just, the plot doesn't really matter. It's just there to hang action scenes off and a chance for him to show off, for Corey Yen to show off. And, I'm not underplaying Louis Leterrier's role here at all. Like, he was involved in action scenes too. He just let Corey Yen take charge because it was his skill set. He'd been doing it for decades. But I think really it's one of those movies that you don't want to think about the plot too much. You just want to enjoy the scenes that put there in front of you, and you want to see a little bit of character growth, which you do see. But really, what we're here for is the actor growth.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is a lot of, like we were saying at Lock, Stock, there's been a huge evolution. I think you guys have seen it and spotted it throughout Snatch and all the other ones, The One and everything. And I've not listened to your Mean Machine one just yet, but I'm sure that will be equally as good. But yeah, absolutely. I think this is it. Like, he has the confidence, the poise, the ability. It's all there. Like, this is it. This is the whole package. I think we said it earlier, and he delivers like everything you want. This is the Jason Statham movie. This is what now.
Well, this is the Stath movie. Yeah,
this is the Stath movie. This is like we talked about. He's not like in Lock, so we talked that he's not the Stath really there, but it's coming through very, very gingerly. It's peering through the veil. This is it. This is the Stath. This is the first the Stath movie, and this sets the standard for what people come to expect from the Stath and his movies going on. Even though I feel like, unfortunately, it's a bit kind of forgotten, a little bit. There's been more Stath movies. There's been similar Stath movies. Mileage may vary on which ones you prefer, but I think this is absolutely solid and a great starting point. From, again, this is his Pokemon evolution. We've had our Charmander. This is our Charmeleon, if I remember rightly, and then Charizard. But yeah,
those are just words to me, I'm afraid. I think I might be on the 2 end of the age scale for that one.
Oh, only just. But yeah, so that's kind of like, you can sort of see it's coming, and this is, I think, his first proper like big evolutionary jump. And like you said, only 7 films in, and from what we've seen of him, again, this is my skill set. These are the type, I think this is him saying, these are the type of films I want to do as well. This is him going, I love this, I'm good at this, I want to do this. Like we said in the first podcast, what was it? Stallone, Redford,
I think it's Stallone. It was Steve McQueen. It was Clint Eastwood.
Sure.
And his favorite actor and his favorite movie is Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon. So, yeah, I don't think he was comparing himself to him, but that is, his acknowledged favorite performance and favorite movie. So, yeah, I'm glad that's exactly what I wanted to go next, was that you and I discussed in that first episode, those people who he looked up to. And you can see, once again, you can see that in this performance. You can see that Steve McQueen-ness in the driver's side, and you can see the Clint Eastwood stoicness and kind of retrograde masculinity to begin with in his relationship with Lai. That sense of like, don't talk in the morning. I like it quiet, and it's all a little bit uncomfortable, but
sure,
it's meant to be in order to show that little bit of. I mean, it's very broadly done, but it's meant to show a bit of character development.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, he's he's lived a very comfortable life, comfortable existence,
and independent and by himself as well.
Yeah, exactly. So he's not used to having I live mostly alone as well. I think if somebody came into my life, there would be some adjustment. There would be, it's not going to be like, it's not going to be all roses all the time. There's going to be moments where I'm like, just leave me the fuck alone, please. There's going to be moments where I just want a bit of peace and stuff. So I can understand where he's coming from.
Even when you have a house full of people, you still feel that way, believe me.
Exactly. And yeah. And, even at a party, you can feel quite lonely or you can feel like the opposite. You're like, fuck, what am I doing here? I feel weird or out of place or, maybe I just want some peace and quiet. And, I think he, unfortunately, it does come across a little bit like, not misogyny, I'd say, but there's a bit of there's something to be said for this young, innocent, she's doing all the cooking and cleaning and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, make my coffee, be quiet. But again, it could be done worse. I think they just about do it where it's kind of comfortable. And it's not,
I think he's not asking her to do anything. She's doing it. And that even when she's pouring him the coffee, he's like uncomfortable about like, I don't need you here pouring me coffee. Like actually he said she can go, to be fair, hasn't he? He's like, you do what you want. So I agree. Like it feels dated, but it doesn't feel kind of toxic.
It's not, I wouldn't say it's problematic. We've talked about this in other films, stuff on my podcast, stuff, you've done as well. And other stuff in Comics in Motion as well on other podcasts. There is a lot of problematic stuff in things, but there's nothing in here where I was like, this is really dated, that it's so dated that it's problematic. It is dated. And, I don't think some of the writing for her is the strongest. I will say that. And those scenes aren't as good as they maybe could be. Fair play to her, though. She didn't speak any English. So to learn those lines like phonetically and I know behind the scenes they didn't really talk, but I think that kind of helped their relationship the way it does because obviously they're supposed to be quite separate and not really understand each other and very different people, and that I think that helps with the acting involved, and it's there, it's fun. She's sweet and she comes across really well and sweet and lovable and caring and her acting is, I actually think her acting is really good in this. When she gets the opportunity to do it, I think she's really strong. And
she does earn agency throughout the movie. She starts off as this kind of damsel in distress, quite literally, but she takes control of her own fate, and actually she gets Jason Statham's character, Frank Martin, the transporter, to do what she wants by the third act.
Yeah.
So I think that she's weak to begin with in terms of the writing. I agree, not in terms of the performance or
no.
But I think in terms of the writing. But I think again, maybe not all purposely, but I do think that there's a reason for that. So she has somewhat of an arc.
Yeah. Well, she's on like the opposite trajectory of Statham. He's softening and she's kind of hardening. So she's like, and we see that towards the end of the film that she will do certain things and certain things we don't see her do in the beginning of the film or wouldn't expect her to do. And obviously there is that, she's not telling the exact truth and she's maybe manipulating him a little bit. There is that kind of slight, I wouldn't say it's a femme fatale, but there's sprinklings of that idea of a femme fatale. And I think it does work. And again, they work off each other quite well. I think the chemistry is there and it shows towards the end of the film. It's good. I'm happy.
She did call him a cute big boy in the press, about their relation. What was your relationship like? And as you said, they couldn't talk very much. They had an interpreter. Yeah, it was uncomfortable. But her words, he is a cute big boy.
I bet he's a teddy bear. I bet he is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I bet you get him alone, or get him, maybe a few drinks and stuff. I think he's a big soft teddy bear. But the persona, what he's trying to sell is the hard man. Like you were talking about Bruce Lee as well. I definitely got some Bruce Lee like stare vibes. When Bruce Lee gives you that look, like you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Like those looks he had, the use of his eyes, really expressive in this.
There is no sense that the transporter, Frank, is ever truly in danger. And for some movies, that's a problem. I saw Jurassic World Dominion last weekend with my eldest, and I absolutely loved that film. Weird tangential side, has no comparison to the Transporter at all, but there is that sense of like no jeopardy for our main characters. We know they're all going to be okay. Sorry, spoilers for Jurassic World Dominion, but shock horror, all the main characters are okay. There's no jeopardy for him in this either, but I think that's because, as you said, a bit like a Bruce Lee vehicle, we know how well he can handle himself. So therefore the joy comes in seeing him doing the handling.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's like, because it's also like it's the revealing, it's the slowly revealing of his skill sets as well. Like you said, I don't want, we get the idea that he's like kind of a pacifist, that he doesn't want to get involved with violence or hurting people when he can avoid it. He's doing the deal, he's doing, he's playing nice. He'll, it puts up with the kind of sleazier side of people. He's just like, I'm here to do this. Get in, get out, done. Simplicity, uncomplicated. That's the way I live my life. And, and it works up until this particular story. And we see that. And I think every situation brings something more out. Like there's a bit more, like we see a bit more of his martial arts skills. We see a bit more of his driving skills. And, and he's driving like, a shitty car, or he's getting in that boat, that little boat he's got and everything. And it's great. But yeah, there is, I think there's something to be said about, like, again, the script there's very, it's very sparse, the script, and there's these moments, but again, you don't need it because Stath is the Stath. He's carrying it. It's his vehicle. It's
charisma, isn't it?
It's charisma. It's confidence. It's just that stage presence as well. Like he has it. Like you're watching him. You are watching him throughout this entire film. No matter what. Yeah, the accent's a bit dodgy, sure, but everything else, like it's everything else for me is firing on all cylinders in this.
With his stunt work and the amount of fighting he does himself and the amount he takes on in terms of the, the harnessing and all that kind of thing, he is somewhat of a British answer to Tom Cruise in a way. And I think in terms of that, obviously very different people and very different performers, but I mean, in terms of like the amount that they take on in terms of the risks they take and the stunts they perform, it gives it that sense of kind of verisimilitude, or like, it makes it tangible. It makes it more exciting because we know it's that person there doing that in the moment, rather than, like facial CGI mapping with Pierce Brosnan on a fake surfboard, or Vin Diesel not actually surfing in XXX down and all that stuff. Like, they're there and we know they're there, and they are in danger, even though it's safe, absolutely in danger.
And this is the era where we're coming out of it's early 2000s. We're coming out of the 90s. We're not quite there with the CGI stuff, though they do use a lot of like I noticed it because they use a fair bit of like digital gunfire and gunshots and stuff. But again, didn't take me out of it. I was just like, yeah, it's digital, it's fine. But yeah, like you said, he's there, he's in the moment, they're in Nice, they're shooting on location. It gives it an authenticity that, X-Men Apocalypse didn't have, or something like that.
What a great example to pop into your head, because that is
Yeah, exactly. It's just just Michael, bloody what's his face, Magneto on a green screen. Fassbender. Yeah, he's just like, this. Yeah. What an exciting action scene. Ooh, I'm just pulling at the magnetic field. So yes, and these two.
The movie that makes Oscar Isaac like a bad actor. I mean, that's a feat in itself.
Exactly. Very, very Egyptian theme though. He was. Everyone has their. Everyone has their MCU, their MCU kind of redemption, don't they? Everyone has. They do the bad comic book movie, and they come back to the MCU. They do a good one. But yeah, I can see that. I can see there's something to be said for, and also it shows that it shows the audience that they care. Like, I'm doing this for you. I'm putting myself at harm's way. I'm putting it at risk because I want you to be involved in that moment, believing it, as opposed to just being like, oh, just paint me on, or do this or do that, or get a stunt double in, or get somebody else. I'm going to do it. I'm going to wear these bloody massive contact lenses that cover my entire eye while I can hang off this plane. There is something to like, Tom Cruise. I've not got like, I don't love Tom Cruise. I'm not like, oh, I'm a Tom Cruise fanboy, but those Mission Impossible movies for me are great. They just get better. The more they go on, they just get better and better and better for me, which is, very unusual for a franchise, but they do constantly up the ante. I really enjoy them, and it's, Bond's fine. I like Bond, I like spy movies, I like espionage. But I genuinely think they're kind of underrated films as well. But yeah, I think there is something to be said in this day and age of green screen and blue screens and CGI this, CGI that. The fact that he is going toe to toe, like full on, doing the work, practicing, rehearsing, taking, like you said, setting himself on fire, taking the hits, and just giving it his absolute all, And again, so maybe a lesser actor would half-arse it, or not give it 100%, or not, learn how to fucking hotwire a car or drive, or fucking, all the other stuff that he does, all the martial arts and everything. He went, this is my opportunity, and again, grabbed it with both hands.
As we're here, let's break down the action scenes then. So I think the first one you've mentioned, and I think in good detail, the first driving scene. But I think we want to get into like the actual, fisticuffs, the martial arts, the ass kicking. Yeah. And the first one is when he storms Wall Street's compound, isn't it? His like villa, after they've attempted to blow him up. So he's delivered lie and then left, and he's given him another job. And whilst he's doing that job, he's stopped again at his little cafe to have another little snack, which seems to be another rule. That's the fourth unsaid rule. I always have to stop for a snack on each drive. Yeah. And their car blows up. So the next thing we see, I really like this edit, how like the car's blown up. As you just said, he's been on fire. He sort of straightens himself out in the way the Stath does, and he's annoyed. And the next cut is like him suddenly bashing the shit out of people, like he's knocking down doors and bashing in heads. But what do you think of this scene?
I love that shot where he knocks on the door. They go up there, look at the peephole, and then the next thing we see him is just flying, kicking the door down. I love it. I think it's utterly ridiculous, it's bizarre, and like it's going to take more than the Stath to knock that door in. But I loved it. And then there's this. He kind of does this kind of bull fighter spin. And then all the cards go up in the air, and the gun is spinning. He catches it. Bam, bam, bam. Takes him out. And then that just goes into the rest of the fight sequence. But I think what a bombastic way to see this guy who's like, I only drive, that's all I ever do. I'll do what they say, I'll take the money.
He's briefly taken out the cops earlier, hasn't he? But we didn't really get to see any of that skill set. This is the cops when they come along, and he's got he's putting lie back in the boot, isn't he? He takes them out really quickly. And then
we get a little bit of that.
But this is the first like visual.
Yeah, he kind of throws lie at them, and then he's just like, and he's like, oh shit.
What I really appreciated here, there's two things I really loved in this scene. I love the music. I think it's called Fighting Man, and it's so awful that it's so good. It's one of the we say like movies are so bad they're so good. This piece of music is so bad it's so good, and it just perfectly fits. It's like, I don't know what it is about it, I absolutely love it. It just makes you smile, makes me feel happy. And I really have the scene you were talking about, like the tight corridors, and he's fighting two guys with axes, and they're swinging at him, and he's ducking, and he's like lifting his legs at the right moment. And what's great is they both attack him at the same time. It's so rare in movies. We normally get that. Now it's my turn, and we criticize films for this sense of that wouldn't happen in real life. Both would attack at the same time, and they do here, and he still kicks both their asses. It's awesome.
Yeah, and again, like to choreograph not only a good fight scene, but to do one where there's a lack of mobility and movement, and it's those quick like kind of changes, those quick snap movements to do it, and it's seamless. And again, it's not cut very. You don't cut very often.
No,
it's it's all him. It's all
And that's the Hong Kong background there, because they want to show the moves.
Exactly. That's the background, and that's the way they do it, and the way. And I think that adds to it as well. If it was a Western thing, it'd be like cut. Different angle,
cut on the punch or cut on the impact. Generally, I think somebody said in a previous episode, I can't remember if it was a meal one I've listened to hide the fact the actors can't do it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly right. But he can, and he is, and this will go on, as you go through your filmography, where like he's already worked with Jet Li. He'll work with Jet Li again, even though I'm not particularly a fan of that film and how it ends. The war, that is. I forgot about the Expendables. I was like, yeah, Jet Li's in that as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a reason why they, Stallone goes to him and Jet Li goes to him and all these other kind of big, the Rock and all the Fast and the Furious guys go to him, because he's set the standard. He's set his, this is his, he set his stall out basically in this film. He's gone, this is all my bits. You like this? I'll sell you this. I'll sell you this. I'll sell you this. This is the stuff I do well. This is the stuff I've made. This is the stuff I can do. Take your pick, whatever you want. But this is what I do the best.
Yeah, well, and he's sort of the last bastion. He's sort of the last action hero in a way of this type of movie. I'm not sure. I've seen a lot of people referring, to neo action, which is your John Wicks, and where we've kind of kicked on again, and the genre has changed. I think Jason Bourne perhaps is another person we could point the finger at as being a bit responsible for this change. But Statham fits in with the Stallone era, but is bringing it forward into the future. He really is the last one, I think, that we can hold up in that regard and say it makes sense that, as you said, Stallone gave him a call and said, I need somebody to be my number 2 in Expendables. It's going to be you.
And could you imagine anybody else in this role?
Around this time? In 2002?
Yeah, early 2000s. Could you imagine
there would be?
Someone who's that good at martial arts, has the charisma, has the acting chops, has the ability to deliver, and it's not Van Damme, it's not it's not Stallone, it's not Seagal.
I love Van Damme, but Van Damme can splits and he can kicks, but he can't really act.
No, probably not. But there you go. Like who was the next generation? Who was the new person to fill that gap of the, maybe the script isn't great, maybe this isn't so great, but we'll raise it up. How many Stallone movies are not great, but at least Stallone is Stallone, and how many Arnie movies are not great, but Arnie is still Arnie. We'll forgive Willis. It for that. Bruce Willis, yeah, exactly. There's so many of those where you're like, oh, that was a clunker, but he was good in it, or I'll watch it for him, And again, we still have kind of movie stars and stuff, but it's very rare that people will go out of their way to watch that one person in that one thing because they like them. It's very rare we get that now. It's more about franchises and multiverses and stuff. But I think you're right. I think he is arguably the last action hero that I can think of, really, because a lot of fair play to actors that they want to they don't want to be pigeonholed into horror and stuff. I get it. You like variety, but I also quite respect the actors that do stay in that kind of horror wheelhouse or an action wheelhouse. Like I kind of I guess there is what's his name, Scott
Adkins.
Scott Adkins, yeah. I guess he's
and
kind
Dwayne
of
Johnson.
Dwayne
Johnson, the three.
Yeah, I could probably say those. They're probably the other kind of part of that generation, I guess. But other than that, I can't think of anybody else really. It's quite a rare. It's that whole like triple threat. Like he's the triple threat. You can do the driving, you can do the acting, you can do the martial arts. Like that version of the triple threat. And yeah, it's great. And it was written for him, and I can't imagine anybody else in that role.
No, and Scott Adkins is a great shout. He is really talented, but he has found himself almost being the B movie, the B list Jason Statham. I'm not slighting his talent at all.
No,
I think that's where he seems to have fallen, and Statham seems to have got the A list jobs. Maybe we just need to get those guys together. That sounds awesome.
That would be a good fight. I think we're in for a good fight. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to say about that scene? Or I
think what you said was really interesting, that when it's tight and it's the small moves, but then when it does broaden out, we do get to see the full range of the Statham ability. Like he can do, like he does like a split kick and takes the two guys out at the same time. He does like spinning. We need Chris here really to tell me the names of things, but he does like flying,
like
spinning
a roundhouse kicks.
Yeah,
and stuff. very Chuck Norris kind of
So
thing.
he's very like technical, like he hits these technical points as well as the kind of, the physicality, like close combat points.
And it looks good as well. He's like, he's selling it. The actors are selling it, and like visually, those legs, like you don't think of him as a tall guy, but those legs are like flying up, like past up into people's faces and heads, and especially during I'm sure we'll get onto it in the next fight scene, but the next couple of fight scenes and stuff. But yeah, I thought it's a great way to go. I'm here. I've arrived, kind of thing. Literally kicking the door down in so many ways, like action wise, he's kicking the door within the film, but also he's kicking the door open for his action hero career.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. So the next one I think would be there's the containers, isn't there? Like the big shipping containers.
Yes,
there's a big fight just before we get into the bus depot. And again, I really like this one because it's another case of like multi characters taking on one at the same time. We've upped the ante now. It's 3 actually. And this is where some of the Jackie Chan stuff comes in. He's using the shipping container doors to block, and then he traps them within the doors, either like pressed against another container, and then he cuts the doors together and traps them in the door. So there's some really like clever creative moves going on there.
I really enjoyed that. Again, there's he's jumping up and he's playing and he's messing around, he's kicking him in the face. Like there's so many levels they're playing on as well. So you've got 3 people, but you're also, it's like top, middle, bottom,
and in and out. Yeah.
And in and out and through and under, and he's still, again, you literally can't touch him. He's like boom, boom, boom. And it's it's very like Bruce Lee, be like water. It's fluid movement. There's no moment where you think this is so rehearsed, or this is, it's not Iron Fist season 2. It's not like, oh, do that, do this, do that. Oh, what do I do now? I do this, I do that. It's just like, it's natural. It's like breathing for him. And again, like these guys, obviously they're putting there's acting involved in this stunt work. Obviously it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get him. Oh no, I've not got him. Whoa, there's a lot of acting going on. Like people forget that stunt people are like, they can't act, and that actually there is a lot of character stuff going on and emotions and stuff. And they've got to act like they're in pain, even if they're not, and stuff. And yeah, I think it was a nice way. Again, I love the cramped area and because it takes a lot of ingenuity to obviously if it's an open space, and obviously there's a bit more room and there's a bit more ability to do stuff, but it's even harder to choreograph something so tight, so close knit, while having to deal with 3 different other actors and for it to look good and stylish and cool. But yeah, I loved it. I think all the action sequences in this just solid, great stuff.
And as you said, there's a really nice, clear escalation in terms of what he has to face, but therefore a greater level of skill we see from him. Because next is the infamous bus into the kind of warehouse oil slick scene, which I don't know if you watched Nobody that came out a couple of years ago with
Better Call Saul.
Yeah. And that had an infamous like fight on a bus, which was really awesome. But I think this is up there as well. Like the scene with him taking on half a dozen guys on maybe 10 on the bus is really awesome too.
So good. It did. I did think about like Shang-Chi when he was on when he was doing that.
Another good bus fight.
Yeah, maybe we need to do a list of bus fights, just all the bus fights ever. But yeah, I thought it was good. Again, the use of the environment, I think, is really important in these fight scenes. Again, it's like even in that one in the hallway, it brings down the light fixture and uses that to kind of tie up all the axes and stuff. Again, it's him swinging around the poles, using the handles. Even when he leaves the bus, he hits the the call button. To stop the bus, and it goes like dings a bell and everything. But yeah, there's this use of like, again, fluid movement. Just he's everywhere all at once. You can't, there's so much going on. I think every time you could revisit that fight scene and notice a million different things going on, happening. But again, it's so seamless and so quick, fluid. but it's fun, it's frenetic, it's energetic, but there's kind of a calmness to him as well. There's kind of an inner peace or something. There's an energy where it's like he's still. He's, his still waters run deep, but he's still on the inside. But he's just like just dealing out all this stuff. Like it's like this is. It's almost a bit like he's a little bit bored as well, but in a good way. Like he's like, I can, it's fine.
When is this actually going to be a real fight for me?
Yeah. When do and kind of, he never really meets someone that's his match, does he? In the
just the big
film.
dude in the next section.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
before they get, so once he leaves the bus, suddenly another 20 guys come, and one of them is like a big 7-8 foot tall mountain, isn't he? And Statham is landing the hits, but nothing's really happening. So that's when he resorts to his clever tactic of covering himself in oil. It's so inventive and so clever. I'm guessing Corey Yen came up with it, or certainly somebody on his team.
Yeah.
But the scenes of the guys trying to grab him and like slipping up his arms, it's just I can't think of that ever being done before or since. It really is like one of those like, what a clever scene that nobody has thought of doing before. It's so smart.
I love it. I think like when I saw it, I went, right, this is the high point. This is the high point of the film. I was like, this is going to be amazing. And yeah, I feel like I have seen something somewhere of a similar nature, but nothing that's coming to mind. But I always think of this when I think of the transport. I always go, oh, that grease fight. And I love that it's a very Jackie Chan thing. He uses the environment, uses something to his advantage, puts them at odds, and then they kind of recover and they're like, okay, I think we've got you now. And he's like, no, just get the bicycle.
He puts the bike pedals on, doesn't he? His feet,
bike pedals, yeah. And just but I love the sliding about and the slipping and the because they can't grab hold of him. Every punch they're making doesn't really land as effectively as it should because there's no he's got no ground to feel that and feel those hits as much. So it's a great little advantage and it's such a clever. Just a clever fight scene, well choreographed, again, fun. I'm just going to repeat myself again. I love this film, right? I'm just going over how much I love it. It's great. It's good. Go and watch it.
And that's when we get the one shot I was talking about, like the camera is spinning around and it's like him kicking like each guy in the face with his pedal foot whilst the other one's actually solidly planted. And it's great, isn't it? Because this scene ends with another bunch of guys storming in and shooting, looking like they're going to get him, but he uses the big dude as his shield. And they fall backwards out the window. And it has this really strange little moment that when they fall into the river, he sucks the last breath. He like snogs the guy and sucks the last breath out of his body so he can stay under for longer and swim away.
I like that though.
It's great.
I was like, because I think that was one of the moments where I was like, I think I remember him doing this. And then it happens. I'm like, oh yeah. And I quite like that because it kind of, again, there's a lot of this kind of macho posturing and macho bullshit and stuff. And that actually reminded me, one of the IMDb bits of trivia was that apparently initially it was written that Frank was going to be gay and that he was going to kind of reveal that throughout the film. The plot was basically the same, apart from the sex scene where they have, obviously, it was like, okay, he's definitely not gay, guys. He's definitely not gay. We can't have a gay action hero. Oh no. Like I'm waiting for the day when we get a gay action hero. Like I'm still waiting for that one where it's like it's proper macho, like proper beefcake guy, but he just happens to be gay. He's just a gay guy. And it's like it's not necessarily a big deal. He just happens to be gay, but he's fucking incredible at fighting and saving people's lives. I'm still waiting for that day. I'm surprised we haven't had it before or since. I feel like there is maybe some things here and there, but they're probably not that celebrated. But I just want something like this, but like with a gay protagonist. It would be great, and it'd be such a nice thing to see, a different thing to see in these kind of things. But I think again back then, obviously, it would probably have been too much of a risk, even in the early 2000s, to do something like that box office wise, and that's probably why they did change it. I don't know if the Stath had input where he's like, not sure about this, or it's not really what because it is his kind of vehicle, so he might have thought. He might have had some sort of input there. He's like, no, I'm not feeling that from the character. But I can kind of see where they were going, because obviously he's like, I don't talk to people. I can, you could see that character is in the closet with all these rules, and he doesn't want to complicate his life, doesn't want to get involved with people or put them in danger. So I could kind of see that. But I like this kind of slightly not homoerotic at all.
No,
but then still a little bit as well. There's still something there, and I was like, that's cool. Yeah, and I liked it.
It's the way to end an inventive action scene with an inventive moment, because it's another cliche that we get in action movies of the person going under the water and being able to hold their breath for like 4 hours whilst they swim away. And at least this tries to address that. There's a TV show I don't know if you ever watched called Alias with Jennifer Garner. It was a J.J. Abrams show where she's a spy on that. And that has a really cool scene when she drives a car actually and it goes underwater. Spoiler for Alias from 20 years ago. And she sucks the air out of the tyres.
Well, that's James Bond, isn't it? He does that.
Does he do that as well?
Yeah, I think it's View to a Kill, I think.
Okay,
like
all right.
That.
So maybe they were referencing that and homaging that. But
I think they've said that wouldn't work, though. It's like really...
I'm not sure sucking the last breath out of a guy that's been shot 50 times would work either. But
he just wanted a snog. Maybe he is gay. He's at least bi. He's at least bi, I think.
Yeah. Good for you, Frank.
Why not? Yeah, I thought that was I love the bit where they all come in with the guns. The last lot of guys come in with all the guns, and he just goes, and he's like down the slalom or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Sliding out. It reminds me,
there's like a little kid on a slip and slide in the back garden.
Yeah, exactly that. And it reminds me that there's a very obscure Spider-Man villain called Slide, and he has this kind of frictionless suit. So he literally is like, he doesn't have like skates, but he kind of like slides down the street, and you can't grab him because he's completely frictionless. You can't catch him. The webs don't stick. So that's, quite obscure and quite very, very, very low level, low danger Spider-Man villain. But it's kind of that concept that you can't.
We won't be seeing him in Spider-Man New Home, or whatever it's going to be called.
Let's be honest, the way Sony are going, they're going to get to Slide eventually. They're going to run out of top tier villains they can turn into heroes, and they're like, yeah, Slide, yeah, let's go for him. I mean, they've got that. Was it El Muerto they're doing, and he's only been in 2 comics, so
Slide's next. Slide
has been in more comics than 2, so he's got more ability to be a character in a movie. But and then I think then after that it's kind of
the finale.
It's kind of the Raiders thing, isn't it?
It is, which starts very strange because he gets the guy to so he obviously swims and gets away, and he finds a pilot, doesn't he? And he gets the guy to fly him to the convoy.
Yeah.
We're sort of skipping a few bits, but they're not really that important. We're just sticking to action scenes here, right? Yeah. What I found really weird about this moment was they kind of like Top Gun style buzz the tower. They fly really closely to the convoy to like announce, "Here I am," and then loop around, and then he parachutes down. I just couldn't fathom the logic of this. Like, if you're going to parachute, just stay high so they don't know you're coming, or if you have to jump from the plane, come low and jump out the first time. Don't do a combination of both. Like, I'm no spy, I'm no action hero, but these two things don't seem to combine to me.
Yeah, but I guess it's that kind of cockiness, isn't it? It's like the James Bond is like famous for being the worst spy in the world in a way, because he's constantly telling people where he is, who he is, who he's hanging about with, what he's doing. There's that kind of element of like, it doesn't matter. Or Iron Man going, "Oh yeah, come and attack my house, Mandarin." It's that kind of like bravado, that kind of macho posturing that we often get, and it's like, "I'll be fine," and it's like, "You're not going to be fine." So yeah, there is a bit of that, and he lands just about, doesn't he? He takes a parachute off, and then it goes. Does it go on one of the other truck or covers them?
Yeah.
I got confused which truck, because he gets one truck, and I'm like, how does he know which one it is? Because there was 2, wasn't there? And they never say what was in the other truck, do they?
No, they don't. I don't know whether that's just the other 250 people and they're not worried about them or what. But
just sat them off. They'll be fine.
No, I thought that the same as well, because there are 2 trucks and like 3 or 4 cars, and
they never say what's inside either of them. They never say exactly which one is which. That was the only thing I was like, but which one is it, and how does he know which one it is? And there's never a moment where he goes, "Oh, the container is this number," or something like that, and then show the number or anything. So it was a bit of logic there. I was like, I was like, that could be full of anything. It's not necessarily the people, unless you maybe peeked it. Like there just need to be like a little scene or something where he like looks in, or he finds something. But again, with all the stuff,
it's in the Transporter tie-in comic, much like Star Wars.
Oh, we're going to find out how Frank got his red arm. Can't wait.
That's it, exactly.
But yeah, I just needed a little bit of spoilers. But yeah, I just needed a little bit of like why this one and why not the other one. You know what I mean? Or maybe if he got the other one, looked in it, or it was like, oh no, they're not in this one. This is the other. Oh, I've gone on the wrong one, or something that just indicated why you would pick. Or is it just like probably this one? I
wonder if it's because it was the lead one. Maybe we missed it had the cars surrounding it, or I don't know. But yeah, I agree. It was something that I felt the same watching it.
I just needed like just a little something. Again, it's just a throwaway line, or like, oh no, that's the other container, and that container's only got drugs in, or it's a decoy. Like, yeah, if he went in and he was like, ha ha ha, this was a decoy and we've led you away, so no, you'll never catch up.
It is something. Yeah, because it is an exciting action, but it is probably the weakest part of the movie in terms of the writing, but his motivation as well. I don't know if he's there to save Lai, or whether he's there because he morally thinks it's the right thing to do. He's just there and gets in a truck and drives it off, because after the scene, you have the kind of the face off with the dad, with Lai's dad. And she's sort of off to the side. She's not really involved in that scene. And I think he'd caused her car that she was in to crash. It was almost like he didn't care if she'd survived or not. So I think this whole section is a little bit problematic in terms of like why he's there and what he's doing.
Yeah, storytelling. Like it's. I think you're right. I think this is probably the weakest part of the film, because we've had such a great we've had a real like escalation in type of action sequences, and I think this is maybe something maybe he wasn't that comfortable doing, or maybe it's something he's not done. It doesn't sound like it's something he's done before necessarily. Again, you've been watching the films, so maybe it was something that they were like, oh, okay, we'll try this and we'll do this, and it's got to be bigger. But for me, I would just been like, because there are those films where you like, there's a great action sequence, but it's earlier in the film. And then sometimes the finale is something like a bit, it's a bit smaller in scale, or it's a bit more muted, personal. Yeah, like you've got for example, like Daredevil, the film Daredevil, you have the Bullseye and Daredevil fighting in the church, and there's all this stuff they're throwing at each other and all this other stuff. And then when he gets to the Kingpin, it's quite a, again, like you said, a muted battle.
It's brief, isn't it? Yeah.
Brief. It's not, it's more emotionally resonant, more emotionally important, but it's not as lengthy or anything. So there is something to be said for that, and sometimes it does work. But I think with this, other than him fighting in the not the cockpit, but the driver's seat of the truck with Wall Street and knocking him out, and him going, getting all destroyed afterwards. I think after that and before that, it's not that interesting as a sequence. I think you're right. And again, the sequence with the guns and stuff and the holding him up again is fine. But yeah, I think I have to agree. Yeah, it's probably after all this great stuff we've had, and it does kind of go a little bit at the end, even though I really do enjoy the film on a whole. I do think, it does kind of peter out at the end a little bit.
It's big, but it's just not as successful, I don't think. And whenever you're homaging something like Raiders, like it's going to be good probably, but it's never going to be as good. And actually, the scene at the end when he's like in the face off with the dad reminded me of Die Hard, because he had it secretly behind him, didn't he? And I was waiting for that moment when he whipped the gun out and shot the dad. But of course, we get that next twist where actually Lai shoots her dad from behind.
Yeah.
So I think,
doesn't remind you of Die Hard, though?
Well, good point. I mean, probably I'm the only one that noticed that. But to me, you're homaging Raiders and Die Hard.
Yeah,
these are pretty high targets to try and achieve.
Yeah, it doesn't quite work.
And the ending is very like, it's like we open up the truck, we see that there's some people, and it's like we're out.
Yeah,
it's weird.
But that also kind of goes back to those kind of those 90s films though, those 90s action films. There's a lot of those which just like Hollow Man. I've talked about Hollow Man on the podcast, and I talked about Showdown in Little Tokyo. Again, they just go, done, guy's dead, end of, we're off. You know, it's not, there's no like resolution. It's like, oh, how do we rebuild, or how do we do this, or how do we move on, or what are we going to be together? There's none of that. It's just done. That was the story. That is the story. And I kind of, in a way, I kind of respect those endings a little bit, but also part of me kind of wants a little bit more, just a little bit more, not loads, not like a whole like epilogue or anything, but just a little bit of like, oh, we're okay now, or something, you know, or, you know, some kind of resolution. But yeah, I think you're right though, talking about the there's no personal stakes in that whole truck thing, because again, we don't spend a lot of time with him personally. Again, there's not much dialogue between him and Wall Street. Like, Wall Street is kind of just the henchman, but he's a good henchman, but there is not a whole lot to his character, or you know, his kind of tics and what have you. It's just like, I like the transporter. He's got rules.
Yeah.
You know,
and there's one fight which is very brief and establishes that Wall Street is a threat to the transporter.
I think they needed some more dialogue here.
I agree.
In that scene, and more like emotional stakes, like, oh, you'll never get on that truck, or you're on the wrong truck, or you know, there could have been something like that, or you know, something to do with Lai and the people in that car, or something. They just needed a bit more context and plot and story and character development. Again, the action scene's fine. It's not the best. It's not the worst I've ever seen. But yeah, I think we lose a lot of the stuff we built up throughout this film. The goodwill, let's call it, throughout this film, for the characters, for the situation, for the people in the container. We kind of forget, and the people in the containers, even though it's the plot point, it's not very. They don't like. It's kind of like, oh, human trafficking is the thing.
It's just a device. Like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it literally could have been anything in that truck. Let's be honest. Could have been a bomb. Could have been nuclear weapons. Could have been whatever. You know, it could have been. It doesn't matter what it is. But like the only real shot we get of that is, you know, the open and the kid runs out. You know, which is nice. And it's a lovely little scene. But yeah, I think you're right. I think we've lost something of the film when we get to that point, and something of the journey, for the character's journey.
There's a film called Premium Rush. I don't know if you've seen it, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. He's a bike courier.
I've seen the trailer. I think I did a bit
already
of research.
Sounds like a crazy, but it's a film I often end up showing in my day job at school. When you've got that bit of time, and the kids always think like, what on earth? Like, why am I watching this? By the end, you're so caught up in it because it's so kinetic. It's like he's called Wile in it, and it's meant to be Wile E. Coyote, right? It's meant to be that kind of Looney Tunes style. But that brings in a human trafficking plot within it. But the stakes are personal because there is a child again involved. Of course there is, because hang it on a child. But it's the child of one of the characters within the film. So the overarching plot is human trafficking is obviously bad, and here's a group of people, we don't want them to be human trafficked, but. Again, sorry, spoilers for Premium Rush, everybody. But there's a personal family connection, and she's a friend of Wiley's, and she requested him to be the bike courier of this ticket. So, but as you just said, it makes it personal, it makes it emotional. So it works better in that movie. Whereas here, it's just like, here's these random people of somebody he recently slept with and met.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what makes it weaker as well is that weak twist that we were talking about, with her not actually being a victim of human trafficking. I think if she was a victim of human trafficking, that would make that connection that much stronger. Like, she'd be like, my little boy is in that container, my family is in that container. Yeah. Like I said,
Lethal Weapon 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen the Lethal Weapon films in ages. I think if they just kept that, I get that they're like, oh, twists and turns, and oh, she's manipulating him, and oh, she's not all like she's not this perfect woman we all think. You know, I get that they wanted to do that, but I think again, it would have upped the stakes, and also if the truck was in danger, and that maybe if we I'm not saying like make it a Justice League film where we have like one Russian family just near all the danger and for some reason they've not left, in this irradiated wasteland. All I'm saying is maybe just to show some of the people within because we don't actually see the people until the end, do we? In the container.
No, literally, like it stops. There's a shot, as you said, the door's open.
Yeah, and
they sort of come towards the front of the trailer from the back, out in the darkness. Yeah,
I think if there's just a few more of those of what it's actually like in there, like if there's people lying next to dead bodies, or there's, again, it's fucking gruesome, but it would get that connection across, like he's fighting to save their lives. It's not such a selfish thing. Like you said, you're not quite sure why he's still doing it. He could potentially, she's lied to him. He could be like, right, fuck her then. It's not my business, nothing my thing. I don't want to complicate my life. I'm off. I'm out. I've almost died. He could easily say that, but obviously he's a better man than that. But I totally agree. As much as I've been like absolutely, just basically just being like just gushing over this film. I do really enjoy it. I know you're a fan, but yeah, I do agree. There is something to be said for the kind of, it is a bit of a rushed ending as well. It kind of feels a little bit like, and we're here. The grease fight.
Yeah,
end.
That's the other issue, is that we hit that peak with the grease fight, and we have been on the trajectory up, and then just peters out and drops down, unfortunately. And there were probably ways that they would like to go back and fix it, or there are ways they think that, they could have done it differently. This is where they went, and I think you've mentioned it a couple of times. The Bond template is definitely here. And that that ends normally with a larger action scene to finish with a Bond girl in some sort of jeopardy, and she may have been on his side but not on his side partway through the movie, and she may be somewhat of a femme fatale. So I think it's just aping that, isn't it?
Yeah, there's definitely, like, Bond usually has some sort of vehicular thing. There's always it's either skis, or it's in a plane or a helicopter, or in a car, in one of the Bond cars or something like that. There's always, and that's usually kind of the finale, or it's a blimp or wherever they are. And you name it, you name a Bond film, they've probably done it. Or a sub or whatever. But it's definitely, it's kind of it's mishmash of a lot of those things. Like you said, all those kind of people that he was inspired by. Again, we've talked about the kind of Wheelman films that it's kind of inspired, and it's definitely in that kind of vibe. But it's also kind of its own thing as well. There's a lot of the Asian influence, like you said, and the Hong Kong, like kung fu, wuxia stuff. And again, that kind of sprinkling of the European flavor as well. Like I know we have not really talked about it, but I really love the French cop in this, like the dynamic they have, the kind of little rivalry and the fun and the playful kind of banter that they have. I think he's really good. I think he's a really good actor. I think he plays his role very well, and there's a lot of fun to be had with that. But yeah, I think he's really good. I know we've not really gone on about him, but I think he's probably the best actor in it as well, I think.
Yeah.
And he's really great in his role, even though it's very, very brief.
He did a good job, to the point that he's going to get invited back. So we've got a chance to talk about him again. And I think, just to finish up before we do all the wrap ups,
sure.
I do, you've touched upon it again there. It is important to think about the European influences upon this. I mean, we know Besson and Lettier are French. We know it's set in France. And to me, as well as those Wheelman, as well as those like Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood, Sylvester Stallone, Bruce Lee, it made me think of like Jean-Pierre Melville, like French New Wave gangster movies, or like the Alain Delon. I absolutely love a movie called Le Samurai, which is yes, again another character where you could see may well have been an influence upon the writing, and then maybe in something they may have shown Jason Statham in terms of his character, that kind of silent, stoic, sticking to rules. All of those templates are in those movies too.
I need to do some French New Wave for my podcast. I think
I'm available.
Yeah, let's do it. You know me, I love all the different wonderful genres out there, all the weird and wonderful ones. So that's definitely one. I talked about the Patreon, my Patreon on Spider-Dan and the Secret Wars. Will have enjoyed my top 5 Ozploitation films, which is a fun list to compile. That's a YouTube video that's there. So pay some money and see some good stuff. But yeah, I definitely want to dive into some more of that sort of stuff. That'd be cool. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I love all the, I'll be honest, like I say, I've not seen many French films. And I'm like, all the French films I've probably seen are Luc Besson films.
Sure.
Pretty much. I'm like, yeah, I've seen most of those. But yeah, so yeah, I definitely want to dive in there. But yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of flavor, a lot of influences, but they all come together and make a fairly brilliant film.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being Besson, I mean, he is massively influenced by the these French number films we're talking about. Looking at all of the characters that he's done and their the Professional. Even like Bruce Willis's character in Fifth Element, I think you can look back and you can tie into those influences from the past as well. So maybe that's an experiment to do, which is looking at some French New Wave, and then maybe you can tie it back into Besson. You can build yourself back up to it.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Nice.
We'll germinate on that. But,
let's just discuss future and admin for your show whilst we're doing my show. Great, I love it.
So boring, so interesting. we did it. I did it. When did we did? We did it on the Disney discussions. Yeah, we did proper. I think that stayed in the whole podcast. It was just like, when are you available? Oh, we'll do that. When are we available? Okay, yeah, sounds good. Yeah, do you want to run it? You want to edit it? Yeah, sure. Just all that bullshit. But you get chatting, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's nice to have. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the badder kind of Statham films as your podcast goes on, because I've seen a couple of brilliant ones. So I've been quite lucky, I think. You've
picked a couple of good ones so far, and you're at least going to be back for 2 more Transporters, and we'll see how you feel. Revisiting number 2, because I know that you've seen it and you're a fan, and then I think seeing what you think of number 3 and how it finishes off the Stath Transporter era, obviously, because we know it goes on to be another film and then a TV show, doesn't it?
I guess it gets reboot. Is it Refueled Transporter? Refueled. I think it's the villain from Deadpool.
Yeah, I can't think. Ed Screen, is that his name? I think.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah. And there was a TV show as well. I didn't know that.
There was, yeah, which I don't think lasted very long.
No, that's probably why I didn't hear of it.
No, exactly.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to those.
All right, so let's get into some letterbox reviews before we get your, and the one, the most important review is yours.
Of course, yeah.
Somebody who it seems like I'm going to talk about a lot, because I think this guy's beating me to the punch in terms of seeing most of Jason Statham's films. Is a guy called Lou Shoemaker on Letterboxd, because he always seems to approach them from the Stath perspective too. But he says, compared to the 6 films that came before it, The Transporter is a fucking masterpiece. Manna from heaven in the form of Jason Statham dance fighting in Motor Royal. In reality, it's not quite that good. The worst scene, I want to talk about this actually, is and will forever remain when Jason Statham gives a drink to the girl in his trunk and romantic music kicks in.
Yeah.
That's the scene though that I think knows what it's doing, and I think that is that's the most James Bondy piss take scene. Because we know when we look back at James Bond, it's leery and lechery, and the way that he treats women is not acceptable. And I think that this is the scene where it's playing on that, because what he's doing is obviously odd and strange. The way he's treating her is wrong, and it brings in this really like cheesy romantic music. I do think that's doing it.
Yeah,
from a knowing place. I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Agree.
It's kind of a mix. I think I've got mixed feelings about it. I think I can kind of see what they're doing in a way, but also I think you can view it as like, ooh, he thinks her being tied up and helpless is sexy and it's turning him on. Or I think you could view it both ways. I'm not quite sure how I feel, but I did notice it definitely when it happened. I was like, okay, this is a take. I'm not sure where I quite stand on it, but obviously he does help her and he gives her the drink. But that might be his kink, though. He might be a feeder. He might want to fatten her up. You never know. That might be his thing.
Stealing Origina and giving it to tied up ladies.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's somebody out there with that fetish.
That is it. I mean, it's a unique fetish, but I'm sure somebody has it. But yeah, it's kind of, I'm not quite sure how I feel about that one. I'll be honest. It's kind of, I can see it in both ways.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, this guy goes on to say, what really makes the action scenes work is not their brilliant choreography or cinematography. Both are fine, but not amazing. It's Statham himself. With his cool professionalism and a face that looks like it was cut from solid granite, he can turn any hallway decent action scene into a rousing good time. This is the kind of film that would go on to become his bread and butter. Lou knows his shit.
Yeah, that's a great review.
Steve G says, all I'm saying is we should respect the Stath. Because before neo action kicked in this decade, this is what I was referring to earlier, Jason Statham was almost propping up the action film all by himself. He was toiling in a thankless task in a genre that nobody really seemed to want to watch anymore, yet he kept churning them out and along the way made some very decent ones indeed. The Transporter doesn't hold up as well on a rewatch as I would have hoped. It's a bit stop-start and the ending didn't feel as big as it should have been. At the same time, it has a couple of outstanding scenes, and no review of this film is complete without a reference to an expression of what the fuck about the now infamous oil slick fight scene. Truly a marvel of film thinking, then perfectly executed.
Yeah, great. Another great review. Yeah, spot on.
These guys know what they're talking about. Noah Thompson says, this movie was fucking stupid. Entire scenes felt cut out. Some of the story was borderline incoherent. There were multiple continuity mistakes. The soundtrack is so painfully 2000s it hurts. And some of the line deliveries made me laugh out loud. That being said, there's also a fight scene where a sweaty, bare-chested Jason Statham fights a gang of thugs wielding phallic weaponry. At one point in the fight, he spills over a sticky substance that drenches the gang and himself. When the fight ends with him jumping out of a window and into a body of water, he briefly puts his lips against the lips of one of the thugs to get oxygen. In other words, that scene alone gives this film its respective rating, which he said was 3.5 stars and a like. Fair enough.
Well, I mean, he's looking for that gay subtext that's clearly in the film, isn't
Absolutely,
he?
Yeah.
He's seeing that, so maybe that was it. Maybe there was those little moments where they were like, "We'll just leave that in the script, just like maybe just a little hint to what was or what could have been, maybe." So, yeah, interesting.
Finally, Statham gets to be Statham. That's the intent of this movie. A vehicle for him to do absurdist action shit and allow the viewer to shove popcorn down their gullets. Nothing more and nothing less. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And then, by balance, we should have something which doesn't like the film. I don't know why. They must be crazy. Much like the Stath's aptitude for accent work, where you're supposed to be American here, Jason, this is very, very weak. The plot is uninspired. The villains are caricatures. The soundtrack truly offends the ears. These people have become the soundtrack. I love it. Yeah. And the action is far too infrequent and not nearly as dumb as it needs to be. A woefully poor effort. The one redeeming moment, guess what? Is a fight sequence where everyone slides about on a thick soup of engine oil. That bit was pretty slick. Everyone loves the engine oil. And then, just to finish off, from Mario, not nearly as good as I remembered it, but 2.5 extra stars for Jason Statham. Gotta love Jason Statham. I concur.
Absolutely.
I had to underline that, Mario, because you gotta love Jason Statham.
You gotta. And that's what this podcast is all about. Fantastic. I think the consensus is it's pretty good to great, I'd say. I think the general consensus for it. And I think I'd agree with that.
So where do you fall on the 3 tiers? Do you reckon it's a classic, worth catching, or completist only?
Classic. Absolutely a classic. I think, again, we've gone over the kind of the dodgier parts. There's parts of it that you might not enjoy. There's parts of it that may not, tickle your fancy. But if you are looking for the Stath, if you are looking for a Stath film to start you off, I think this is fantastic. Again, choreography is great. There's enough there to keep your attention, and I think the influences are there. And I think that does help in a way to get you on board because you've seen all these previous type of films before, be it the Bond or the Wheelman films or the Kung Fu stuff or the Luc Besson stuff. You've got a familiarity with it. And I think all this does, it goes, right, all of that, but Statham.
Yeah.
And I think that's the glue that holds it all together is Statham. I think, like I said, I don't think there's anybody else you could put in this film. I don't think there's anybody who could have held it together as well as he does. Absolute consummate professional performer. Again, does all the stuff. He went above and beyond, like we've said. He's done all these things. He's not half-assed it. He has given it his absolute all. And I do think it's a classic, an absolute stone cold classic. Again, we've discussed the problems, but I really enjoy it. It's fun, and yeah, I can't get enough of it. And I know people have been saying that it's not as good on a rewatch, but I actually really enjoyed this coming back to it. And I was like, I forgot how good it was. I forgot how good these sequences are, and I still, like I said, I still remembered moments from it, even though it's been maybe 10 years since I've seen it or something, maybe longer, maybe shorter, but it was there in the recesses of my mind, the back of my memory. So it had an impact on me. It had an effect, and when the second one came out, I bought the second one, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want from it, and there you go. But yeah, absolutely think this is a stone cold classic.
I disagree with them, and I agree with you. This is a classic all day. There's pretty much the only thing that's better than this is Transporter 2, and we will be there very soon.
Yes, I can't wait. All
right, thank you again for coming on the show and providing your unique perspective. What have you got coming up fairly soon that people can make sure they tune in for? So we will be out in 2 weeks' time.
2 weeks' time. Okay, so I think I'm doing this week. I'm doing Ms. Marvel with Tonya, Rhea, Mike, and Megan. So that will have come out. I'm doing my Shakespeare podcast with Tony and James Aquilon about his new Kickstarter project. So that'll have been out. My podcast, Blaxploitation, Pangria podcast, Clone Wars, will be out this Friday with Tonya and Rhea again. Excellent. Honestly, one of my best podcasts I think I've ever done. It's really, really good, and they're top tier as well. But I think what's coming out around about now will be another Clone Wars, probably the last one this year. I think I've done enough recently. So it's going to be me and Mike from Genuine Chit Chat and from the Comics in Motion family. And we're going to be comparing Maximum Carnage, the Spider-Man and Carnage and Venom event, with Absolute Carnage, the more modern one. And Mike's going to talk about his love for Carnage as a character, who he has described as his antithesis, because he's obviously a very methodical, organized, sensible young man, but Carnage is all anarchy and chaos. So it's a really interesting chat. It's a long one. I'd say it's a long one. I think maybe about 2.5 hours. We'll see how much I can cut out of it or not cut out of it. But yeah, that'll be the one that's probably out around this time. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. So it's not even just a comic book or another comic book. It's events. So we get to talk about the good and the bad things about events as well. And we'll talk about Venom: Let There Be Carnage, which Mike is a big fan of. I am not, but fair play to him. It's kind of a little bit of a Secret Defenders too, but
nice.
But yeah, it's so there's a bit of that. So there's a nice bit of there's again with another discussion I had not so long ago. It was more with the Batman v Superman one. It was more about more of the other stuff before we compare. But yeah, really, really good, really interesting, and great guests as well. They've been all amazing and been so nice to have me on their podcasts as well. So go check those out.
Interesting to hear Mike cast himself in the narrator role. We need to unleash his inner Tyler, I think. That's going to be my pet project. Turn Mike into Tyler.
Get it, make him unleash let there be carnage. Let Mike's carnage come out.
Add a little nihilism, anarchy into your life.
Yeah, a little bit. It's all right. It's find the balance. You got to find that balance. Just a little bit of chaos, a little bit of organization, bit of both. Let it all out. But yeah, thank you again for having me on. It's been fantastic, and I can't wait for the next one.
Well, thank you again, mate. And thank you everyone else for listening and partaking in this journey with me through the Stath's filmography. That was The Transporter. Next up in a fortnight from me is The Italian Job, followed by Collateral for anyone that is watching along. I've been Jack's Musings, and that's JACS, and you can find me on Twitter where I am most active. You can also contact the show directly on Twitter under the name Back to the Filmog, and make sure you use the hashtag Follow the Filmography. This show has been presented to you by the Pop Gorillas, a collection of hive minds who provide spoiler-free reviews of anything from pop culture in less time than it takes to listen to a song. I'm also a proud member of the Comics in Motion family, a super place full of the world's greatest people, dedicated to bringing you podcasts on a variety of geeky topics. So please make sure you take the time to search, subscribe, and rate our shows whenever and wherever you listen. Until next time, be excellent to each other and make sure you take the time to treat yourself too. I am Jack signing off. Yippee-ki-yay, movie lovers. Cut.